All right. We are here for the Board of Directors of Montessori Peaks Academy general meeting for the month of December, Tuesday, December 6th, Tuesday, December 15th. Sorry, and that's wrong on the agenda. Sorry. At 6:31 p.m. Lisa, you want to do the roll call?
Do roll call, and this will be the order I'll call for any votes taken. I just write down who pops up on the screen first. So we have Christina Grant, Brandon Smith, Jack Llewellyn, Lisa Myers, Becky Springstead, Brittany Horseman, Carmen Center, Robin Morrissey, and Beth McDonald. We're all present. A quorum is here.
All right, and we will take note of the Montessori Peaks Academy mission statement and then move directly on to community comments.
I was trying to start each meeting with a positive celebration, and my positivity is that there are 3 more days of learning.
2.5. 2.5.
That's my positivity for the day.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So I'd put an agenda item of holiday wishes, and I'm not one to wax nostalgic or anything, but I did want to take a moment to say to, on behalf of the board, and obviously anybody else can speak up, but on behalf of the board, to Brian and Amy and Veronica and everybody else on the staff, to all of the teachers and to all the community, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, something else, nothing else, or there's a new year coming up, we wanted to give thanks to everybody. I was thinking back a couple of years ago, for whatever reason today, like I say, not being one to wax nostalgic, but I was thinking back to, the principal search and the process that we went through when, in this time of not much seeming to go right. That was one thing that certainly did. And it's not Thanksgiving, but boy, am I thankful that it worked out how it did. And so, again, on behalf of the board, to everybody, thank you for all that you do. And happy holidays, happy new year, all that good stuff. As we did last month, and I didn't hear any strenuous objections, so I kind of kept it this way. Really, the meeting is yours, Brian. The most important thing really is your principal's report and what you want to talk about, including the Restart program. So the floor is yours and the time is yours. So make of it what you will.
Sweet. Let's play bingo. I can share here. There we go. We're actually playing games a little bit as a staff tomorrow after our staff meeting. So, of course, we got to start off with celebrations. Miss Amy has, I think you have the details on the award that Miss Jill was nominated by her parents for being an awesome remote teacher. And that was a huge celebration because the parents brought it up and made the nomination. And did you have the certificate?
I do have a copy of the certificate. But I also have kind of a little write-up.
Ooh, perfect.
A family, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Quirks family nominated Jill for teacher appreciation with the Colorado PTA and McDonald's. And they wrote a very lovely letter, and they held a surprise Zoom with all of her class. And a representative from the Colorado PTA and McDonald's were there. And the representative from McDonald's presented Jill with a certificate for teaching excellence and being a positive role model to students, some McDonald's coupons, and a $100 Visa gift card for classroom supplies. So it was a surprise. And then I have a picture of the certificate and of her Zoom class, which I probably can't publish the Zoom, but we'll do a little write-up in the newsletter and send that, a copy of the certificate out, just, kind of with what I read there. So Jill was very surprised, but it was pretty cool to see her after, because she was really happy. We were cheering for her and everybody was wondering what was going on in the office.
Right. Especially since remote teaching is a brand new thing. A year ago, we weren't doing this and didn't even cross our minds that we would be remote teaching in December of 2019. So here we are. And I want to take just a little bit of time to read this thank you to Miss Morgan. She's our new all-star on staff. And this, to me, this parent email kind of sums up how I'm feeling at the moment. It says here, "Hi, Morgan. I really want to take a moment and say thank you. I've been a teacher in another life, and I know what a tremendous amount of work it takes to plan, execute meaningful work for students. Everyone has had to set up and make adjustments since the pandemic disrupted our lives. I know every household has different stressors, domestic responsibilities to fulfill, family members to care for, and professional careers to manage. It is impossible to come up with a plan that accommodates everyone's personal needs. I think you're doing a fantastic job of adding flexibility into the daily remote learning schedule, especially with the recent adjustments. Please know you are appreciated and rocking it. You have prepared works for the kids and have prepared the kids to take it on. You've created materials they can use at home, and you've done so much. You are a fabulous teacher, and we appreciate your passion and your love for the job, and it shows." So that's it right there. That's how we close out the year. So that's all I got. No, that's the sentiment. Yes, we get other emails on the other side, and that's okay too. Chances are there's truth in everything that we get, and we have to respond accordingly. We have to make adjustments. We have to listen to the positives and the feedback of getting better, and the staff has just responded. They're tired, they need a break. I think everybody needs that break. So that's where we're at. A lot of celebrations. We could do it all night. Just in every nook and cranny of the school, there's someone doing some awesome work. And so I can't thank the staff enough for their amazing flexibility, tenaciousness, and determination that has gotten us to this point. The job's not over. We got a plan for December, and things are changing. The COVID data in the state didn't quite spike out like everyone predicted. It did get big, but it never really tumbled out of control like people suspected. In fact, the state positivity rate, I don't really look at that. I look at more of the 14-day rates, but that has come down significantly from almost 14% to hovering around 7% today. But that still means we're still red in Jeffco County, even though the numbers are trending into, it looks like human behavior has responded. Now, we're also on the cusp of a brand new 2-week break, and so we'll see where that leads us. Part of that data leads into our conversation later about what is the best restart plan and why, and so we'll kind of save that for later. As far as Jeffco budget, a lot worse than our budget. They're planning for $54 million in deficit. So yeah, that's 54 million. And that's just because of loss of students. When you lose 4,000 students, that's a big chunk. So they are in a quandary. We don't think there's going to be a rescission this year, but yeah, it's tight all the way around. Now, next year, we'll have to see if kids come back, all those that disappeared. In fact, there's a state report that just came out that I think overall the state lost 3.3% of students. And of course, other places lost a lot more. That's a state average. Okay. So when you factor in losing 30,000 kids around the state, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of FTEs out there. Also, since we are now probably going into a different political era, the charters are really ramping up, making sure that we are equitable and we have diverse practices in all charter schools. We don't want to be on the side of exclusivity. So there's a lot of focus on that. I just got done with the convening. You probably see it down below on the charter updates, the 3rd annual Colorado Charter School Equity Convening. I added the toolkit in there. It was very good, but it was a whole day. I can't give a whole day, but I caught glimmers and pieces. And that really does need to be something that every school, including us, we just have to look at our practices. Are we being as equitable and diverse as we can? Are we enrolling that way? And that's also the SPED equity focus. You'll see that SPED website statement draft. That was written by Bill, our attorney for all the charters in Jeffco, to kind of take a look at and have a little bit more disclosure as far as how we handle enrollment. Since Jeffco came up, started on the 8th, we want to say, that we take all kids. Now, obviously, we don't take kids that we can't program for, but that's a pretty rare bunch. Charters, we take all mild to moderate SPED kids. Any child on the upper side of the spectrum, we don't have services for. It's the only ones we don't service. We just don't have that. And so we just want to be as transparent as we can. So the board should really take a look at that website statement. Take a look. That is something that we can disclose to our wording on our webpage or maybe in our family handbook for next year, things like that. But we just want to show that as a charter, we can service and support anyone who enrolls at MPA. So that's a lot of buzz out there. The other part too is reading curriculums. You'll see a lot of that in the news. And that's something else that we'll have discussions on down the road. Right now, I'm kind of letting that kind of bounce around through Jeffco a little bit because there's the state's under attack for cutting out a lot of curriculums that some districts feel are high quality curriculums. So this issue is not over. But us as a school, we have teachers doing that 45 hours of training, and the feedback's pretty good. They like it. It reinforces a lot of the Montessori components of our best practice in reading, as well as this is just good for information that everybody as an instructional lead in our building should know and how to do. So we're going to circle back definitely around the reading component, maybe through accountability, through roundtable and through team and level discussions about upping our reading curriculum practice in the next couple years. Remote learning, yeah. We love in person better. Let's just say that. The teachers do a great job of being able to pivot. I look at it this way. The 3-week break let us kind of see how the pandemic presented itself. And it also keeps those classes, those teachers who haven't been put in quarantine to be ready for the second semester. Because when you pivot, you're going to pivot on a dime when we go back in person, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen quite a bit through January and February. So it's good practice for everybody, students, parents, everybody involved, that when we go back in person and classrooms get pushed to quarantine, you got to be able to go, oh, I've been here before. This is how the Chromebook works. Here's our passwords. Here's how we shift to remote. That's just part of our world now. We got 2 environments, 2 worlds, at school and at home, and we got to be good at both. And so I look at December as a great refresher of things to come, because if we want to keep the building open, we need that flexibility. In fact, right now, if we were open in person, we'd have 3 classrooms in quarantine right now and probably a whole bunch of staff. Okay, because we are tracking what parents are telling us, and we would not be running full right now. There would be quite a few at home. Okay, and just because we went remote, the pandemic didn't disappear. It popped up, and we have staff members still recovering. We have some of our youngest in preschool actually turned positive despite all the data from March in preschool that, preschool, you shouldn't have any cases. Well, that's not the case. We had to send 1 preschool class home into quarantine. They'll be back on Thursday. So what this says is we have to be ready at all areas, at all times, in all rooms of our school to be in person, be in quarantine, be back. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later in our restart discussion. If you had a chance to look at some of the parent feedback on that link, there's great stuff, very positive. But as roundtable, we met last night, and again, Jeffco does these surveys. They just kind of throw this stuff out, and then they also survey students unbeknownst to us, and so we get kind of a pile of information, and we try to make sense of it. And all feedback we'll take a look at, and again, we looked at, all right, what are we doing well? What could we improve on? A couple of things we want to improve on is progress reporting, how we communicate how kids are doing more often along the way. And then also, you can kind of say communication, but what kind of communication? A lot of the communication stems around just some of the frustrations with remote learning, things like that. And so, again, we digested it. We'll come up with some plans, just keep moving forward. Staff wellness, like I said, we got some members getting better. Our staff does a really good job of work is super important to them. So they're being safe in all places. And I just couldn't be happier with the health of the staff. Now, the fatigue and, a long year, yeah, that's setting in. And when you start getting close to the finish line, you can kind of say December 18th is at half a school year finish line. You start to see kind of even students, everyone just starts to wear down. So that's why I want to be able to communicate what we're doing in January so students, families, and staff can kind of go, okay, we know what's going on, and now we can take a break. Okay. All staff are doing goals this year. That's a new one. So I'm in the middle of talking to 60 plus staff members about their professional goals. And then at the same time, we talk about the evaluation process that'll come in the second semester, the next step, the observation, the sheet. This is a format that we introduced back earlier in the fall. I showed it at a previous board meeting where teachers self-evaluate and all that. So those are going great. I have to say, I'm excited. I got in this business to talk to people, not stare at a computer all day. And so it's just been entirely refreshing to talk with people either on Zoom or they come down to the office and talk about things that are important to them. And right now I'm up to about 18 staff members. So by break, I'll be a third through the staff. It just takes a while, 30 minutes, 60 people. And I got to do it twice a year. I love it though. That's to me where growth and connectedness will happen this year. The last meeting that we had, we talked a little bit about we need a remote teacher at lower. Primary has Miss Jill, upper has Mr. Todd. Those just fell that way so easily because of how the numbers of the school year or the parent choice at that time kind of rolled up. We didn't really spend any extra money. But to do lower, we just didn't have the numbers. And I think Amy and I financially can figure out, we'll talk a little bit more about this in the finance committee on Thursday, but we have some funds that we can move around. We're going to get what's called ESSER funds after first of the year. It's just a small chunk, but it'll help offset the cost of hiring a remote teacher. And lo and behold, a Montessorian fell out of the sky right into our laps. We hope we can close the deal this week and actually hire a lower L Montessori person. We don't know the full scenarios yet, I won't say, because none of this is done, but we have potential for the second semester to have an actual dedicated remote person for lower. We're going to move a little bit of staff around, put everybody who's best in the right place. But we're working the details out as a lower team this week, and I should be able to give an update to the board by Friday of kind of our plan for January on that. So we got a few things to get through, but that's exciting. That'll help them. When I say them, the lower leads, to focus on less of trying to do remote and in-person teaching all day long, and then spending long hours of the evening planning and their weekends planning to do both. It's really an impossible task, and we need to fix that problem. Our SLP, whom we love, he's moving, but we did get lucky and find another one that'll start in January. So I can't tell you, we just seem to, staff-wise, we're getting everything we need that fits our building and also being Montessori. So can't be happier. One of the focuses of Roundtable last night was our messaging. When you really look at some of that data I sent out earlier in the fall, why some of our families left us to go to neighborhood schools, I think we need to face reality, and the reality is we need to tell people how we're handling things and why we are the better choice. I know it kind of goes against a little bit of how the school feels. You know, our product should speak for itself. Friends, I went and I jumped on a business presentation today on social media and how to send out gratitude through social media, video, things like that. It's one of the apps I use. I do my videos, my story time with. And even the business world has said it is now a choice market, is a consumer market. How we get groceries now, everything has radically changed in the last 9 months. And everyone needs to grapple with the same fact that consumers are in the driver's seat, not us anymore. And so we need to really tell why MPA. And so the little link right there, Miss Amy put all that together because obviously she's been a parent and she's been involved in several Montessori schools. So she just compiled a lot of information about how different schools, different things from, some are old videos, but the content is timeless. And so we need to learn to craft a better message at MPA. And parents are now like, maybe the pandemic is slowing down and maybe I need to start looking around a little bit more, because remember, about 9% of parents just disappeared. Families just disappeared. Well, they're going to be coming back at some point. So we need to be prepared. Our virtual tours that we do with Miss Lisa, Miss Beth, Amy's there, I'm there. Those are good. And parents like those because it's not the same as in person, but it's the next best thing. And how can we weave in that same message? Why MPA, but also give tours, but also reinforce the parents who we have right now that might go, I wonder if the neighborhood school could be better. And some left for that. They thought they could get a better remote package at a neighborhood school than us. Well, we hope they'll return. Because I don't think that's true in all cases. Maybe some teachers are awesome out there. I know, yeah. but our teachers just keep getting better and better and better. It takes time. How much time can we add to this conversation? But I think the board, you could really help with pulling out key phrases, key things that resonate with you as parents that other parents would want to hear. So I encourage that strongly because we have a window of opportunity right now, and that is the spring. So basically January to March, we need to really tune this, and then we'll carry that ball all the way into summer, because some parents will still be on the fence come July and August, just like this last year. And we want to be ready. Okay. After care and day camp, well, day camp's doing it. It's not a huge group. It's less than 10. I think we have eight or nine, but it's a great test run for several reasons. One, we know we can run aftercare. The other thing too is, what if we get into a bind where we're in person, but yet I have some staff members who have kids that their school's closed? That's been one of the problems, is there's not a unified plan for Denver area districts to get all on the same page. And so when one district's closed and another district's open, it causes all kinds of staffing problems. And we may need a way to support our staff members by having a day camp for employees' children. So it's just nice that we were able to lift it off the ground, get it running successfully. Miss Lori's done just an incredible job with her team to put all the pieces in place, get all the kids on all those different Zooms. Think about it. If you got 8 kids and they're all in 8 different classrooms, that is a lot of getting kids all in the right places all day long. You probably know that as parents. And so they have to do the same thing and manage 8 different lunches, 8 different recess breaks. It's a good test for us, because we don't know what else we're going to need in the future, but now we have the capacity to do alternative programming. So I think it's a big feather in our cap. The middle school, we met last Wednesday. I think Brittany and Christina were there, and we just kind of give an overview of the middle school planning and all the pieces that we've, as a staff, worked on this fall. And we'd love to combine that with the work from the summer retreat, from the board's retreat. And so that's kind of the next step there, is where do we take this and blend all this information and really kind of start to hone on what our middle school focus and design would be. And so I'm very excited for that. So we'll circle back to that at some point during the board meeting here. Financials, I think officially we came in at 339. Amy, you can jump in at any point too. It's a far cry from our 370 as a minimum that we were hoping for. Our current count right now is 335. So we've lost some. We've also gained some new students. We're trying to just enroll. It doesn't matter whether we got funding for them or not. These are families that'll probably want to stay with us next year. So we're always enrolling. And so we've lost some are moving, some found other situations to be in. And then there's families that still come to us.
And the PPR ended up being $81 less than was estimated, which isn't a whole lot of money, but money that we don't want to lose.
Yep, still 81 times
339.
339. So yeah. What's it come out about $7,800?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're sub 800 now, or 8,000 now. That's the hard pill to swallow. That's what we were getting funding for back in 2008, 2009. So it's tough. It's tough financially to be in the same spot in 2021, which is knocking on the door. Same funding we used to get 12 years ago. So despite inflation, all that. So it's tough, but we're going to make do. We got these other grant monies. We've been very proactive. The CRF funds wrap up I think Amy and I've almost spent every dollar of that. We have a deadline this week. That was that big chunk of money that we got from the feds. The second one, the SSRG, that is basically a small federal grant again on how to get kids back in person. That helped pay for our windows that were put in over a chunk of them anyway, not all of them, but a piece of them over Thanksgiving that we used to ventilate. And then the new piece is this ESSER funds. Again, it's federal money as part of the CARES Act. That'll give us about $33,000 that we're going to put into instruction. So that'll help us with that situation and lower where we need to hire and move some people around so we can get a remote person in. And I'm excited at just, again, it's like, woo, yay, money's falling from the sky. We just want more of it. So anytime we get a little piece, we got kind of a woohoo down in the office. So everyone say woohoo, we got some money. Now the heart of the business is really the restart. Denver Public Schools announced their elementaries will return January 11th. January 11th, that's a Monday. And their thinking is 14 days after Christmas, incubation period of 14 days on the virus, they felt pretty confident they could open up elementaries on the 11th. Jeffco's looking at the 19th. They have not formally put this out yet that I'm aware of, but we met with Christopher Shue, the interim superintendent, as charters on Friday, and they're looking at the 19th. Part of the reason they're thinking is they're counting New Year's, so kind of how the winter break wraps up somewhere around the 2nd and 3rd of January. The 14-day clock starts, and the next window to jump into in-person right after Martin Luther King holiday is Tuesday the 19th. Preschools in Jeffco would start on the 6th, and they would also run any kind of SPED services and some other things starting on the 6th. So that's all just kind of loose. Middle schools and high schools won't be back in person till early February in Jeffco. So hopefully my document here opened up, all the links worked. So let me punch this up. We ran a lot of scenarios as a building. We're not going to talk about all of them because some of them kind of blend into others, but basically scenario A, board, for you to think about is just starting as stated on our calendar. That's just that scenario. The scenario that Roundtable talked about and kind of came up with collaboratively as a group is scenario E. And what that says is we would follow Jeffco with a little bit of compromise or things that fit MPA. And one would be Roundtable was thinking the 6th, 7th, and 8th of January is kind of a wild card, unknown. They thought maybe the whole building should be remote. Again, this is just Roundtable. And then we launch everything on the 11th, pre-K, day camp, things like that. Homeschool would start on the 12th, and then lower and upper would join in person on the 19th. Then if you kind of work backwards from there, I think we have a scenario where we start school on the 11th. We continue remote January 6th through 8th, and we come back on the 11th. I talked to Dr. Gary today, and he's in touch with what his charter that he's working with in Douglas County. They're planning on coming back on the 5th. So there's a different spin, depends on who you talk to. Everybody has kind of a different take on the best way to start back in January. And I think for us, we have at least 2 or 3 viable scenarios here that gives us, I like the word on-ramp. I think we need an on-ramp to in-person learning. Because like I said, if we were in school today, we would probably have all special teachers out, and we'd probably have 3 classrooms out, and then any kind of support staff that kind of got caught in between that, in either the quarantine or contact tracing. So with that in mind, even though December maybe wasn't quite the pandemic everybody thought it was, the spike, but it still would have been our roughest month as a school by far. And that's what we know about. We don't even know what we don't know, because not every parent probably gave us information about their situation. So with that in mind, we kind of were looking at, we think that first week of January could be a real tenuous week of a lot of, it could go great. It could also go, wow, we just lost 3-4 classes in 3 days. That's the wild card. I can't tell you if that would be true or not, but it's definitely a higher risk. So the first week of January is high risk. The second week's about moderate risk. And the third week is probably more, I'm going to call it low risk, but it's the better of the 3s at that point. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll just kind of throw back up what Roundtable talked about. Jack, as far as time and how we want to do this, I'm looking at the agenda. Do we want to wait on this and come back, or do we want to hammer out a restart plan right now?
I say hammer.
Okay.
Second.
Well, that's going to be the end of my report, I guess. Before we move on to restart, is there any questions about anything I said, things we're looking at? There's a lot there, and we do have second semester work on a lot of this stuff. Obviously, tonight's about what do we do for January, but I'm happy to field any questions.
Hey, Brian, on these restart plans, I noticed that none of the options have the day camp. If there's a 3-week or a 2-week, if we don't start on the 5th or the 6th, whichever it is, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it depends on which scenario. If day camp will run if all the kids are not in, except for maybe that first week. I think the board has to decide, is that a high risk week? Because all it takes is one case and we shut the whole day camp down. So we have to decide, is the week of January 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th a week we want day camp running, preschool running. If kids don't go back to the 19th, there's some version of day camp in there. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't see that. I didn't see that in the scenarios. Okay.
Yeah, it'll still be there, right? It's just a matter of us picking what day they would start in lieu of the first day of in-person for, say, lower and upper. We also have to pick the start date for primary, or is it preschool? So there's a lot. We could do kind of a gradual phase in on the scenario. Say we could start with preschool, see how it goes, and then we could try primary, which is preschool and K, for a week, and then bring on lower and upper. Lower was probably the most impacted group. Next is primary as far as COVID. Upper never had a quarantine. So just FYI, it goes against all the COVID data and all the dashboards you read that we should have had more problems in upper than we didn't. Doesn't mean we won't, but it's just how it all came to be.
Mr. Brian, before we go down.
And I guess I would actually correct that. It didn't impact the classes, but we had staffing issues.
Well, yeah, we had staffing issues. We just didn't have any quarantines of a whole class, right?
Before we dive too deep into restart, there was a question on the live stream chat. It was on the agenda, Mr. Brian, the kindergarten bubble.
Oh, yeah.
Could you touch on that before we move on? Sorry.
They're predicting a kindergarten bubble. due to the fact that so many parents withheld starting their kindergartners this year. So parents are now wanting a year later to start their kinders. So there might be a kindergarten bubble in Jeffco, but there also might be a smaller group of first graders, if that makes sense, because you're just trading one population group and pushing them into another population group. So I've been getting some emails from Jeffco saying, be aware that might happen due to the fact of so many cautious younger parents who just kept 5-year-olds home and where they're going to enroll them. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thanks. Sorry, skipped over that.
No worries.
That's something we feel like we can accommodate with our primary numbers where they're at.
Well, we're scaled to only go to 60. So, yep. And I don't think Veronica has seen a ton of movement on that would suggest that we're going to have an overabundance, but we'll see. It's only been open a week at this point, the enrollment.
I have a question on the restart, and Robin, maybe you're the best one to address this too. One of the trying to wear both the parent and the board member hat, and using the parent hat to inform the board member. One of the concerns I have is kind of the stop and start again, and can go either way. But of kind of getting the remote started and then going back to in person, and then what if you have to go to remote? And wondering from a psychological level, would the kids be better to just go back and I don't want to say chance it, but deal with it as best they can, rather and hope that you get fortunate and you don't have to quarantine much and you don't have a stop and start situation, whereas on if we wait till the 19th, you're going to have kind of that stop and start, and do you end up with what ends up being an almost wasted couple of weeks, because you're going to end up with kids and parents who are tired and frustrated, who are kind of knowing that they're going to go back to school in 2 weeks anyways, and so
yeah. So I can speak a little bit to that, and I can share multiple perspectives so that you can kind of hear those multiple perspectives. So I think the first foremost thing, that restart, we all want to be there, most importantly in person. That is hands across the board. I think that first week, that week of the 4th, I think it would be ideal to open, but I just don't think safety-wise, staff-wise, and hearing from Amy, the office is helping in the preschool program right now. So I think realistically, I don't think that that's necessarily a viable option for our school. Also, that gives us the opportunity to hit the ground running, so that we're not having to staff and pull people and make it weird for kids if for some reason we have to start pulling people that week of the 4th. So that's my thoughts on that. I kind of am reiterating what I'm hearing from Amy, and that what they have been struggling with in keeping those programs open currently. So that's that perspective. From, I would say, maybe about 70-ish% of the staff, they do want to return as soon as possible, which a lot of them are feeling is the 11th. There are some that have lingering health concerns that really do feel that phase-in coming in on that 19th would be ideal. But I have to say, from most of the people that have reached out to me, that January 11th is really seeming like we're a lot of, at least the population that has reached out to me, is feeling like then we can get back with students and we can really hit the ground running starting January 11th, getting back in person, getting, you know, back into school and getting back into our routines and everything. So that's the perspective that I have from that. With that being said, I've also heard from pretty much, I would say 95% of the staff that would help with keeping our planning day on that 5th, so that we were able to use that full day to plan for not only remote, but then returning then on the 11th. And then that we don't have this weird like 15th where we're trying to support asynchronous learners while still trying to plan. Also with primary returning on the week of the 11th, more than likely, if we vote that way. That's hard to set a classroom up multiple weeks. So that's what I've gathered from, I would say, about 50 to 60% of the staff that's reached out to me. Obviously, there are varying perspectives. There are some people that really don't feel comfortable. They don't want to start until that week of the 18th. But I would say the majority of people really want to be back with kids, and we're seeing that this is the best way to do it for kids so that we can be consistent. We're not having to makeshift things in that second week. If we do come back in that first week of the 4th, you know, not having to hodgepodge situations and make it, you know, because consistency is the best thing for kids. And if we're having to pull staff and having to staff weirdly on that week of the 11th because we do bring people back and it gets strange, I think that that's a perspective that really needs to be taken into consideration. And also, we want to be back with your kids in person so bad too. So that's the perspective that I would like to share. I hope that I represented our staff well. I'll leave it at that.
So I'm going to kind of break it out because of the way we break out our school, starting with primary, just so I better understand. Robin, I'll direct this to you because you were just speaking to it. But in the primary environment, I do have a preschooler, so I am there still every day. It is so different, even though we've tried to make it consistent, and I commend you all for trying to make it consistent for our 3s and 4s. Would it help to get the leads back in the classroom, get those primary classes back in one piece as kind of a phase in, like that 6, 7, 8, and then bring lower L in, and then bring upper L, or bring lower and L at the same time? And maybe that was one of the scenarios. I'm sorry, I tried to study these, but my brain's a little bit. But is there any, you know, what's your thought? Would that help staffing, I guess is my question. Would it help staffing so that office isn't filling in for preschool if we brought kinder back with preschool all at the same time? Or
no.
No. Okay.
The answer is no. I mean, if we were working in normal times, the answer would be yes.
Okay.
Getting us all back would be great because then we would have our ratios and everything would be able to play as per normal. But the second that one classroom is exposed, our floater is gone.
Okay.
And then we are automatically pulling from wherever we can.
Okay.
So I think that that's really, and that's, I am coming from the perspective of hearing from the expertise of our admin on these points, and also hearing from Jeff Coe. And so, yeah, that's that perspective.
I appreciate that. I was trying to understand where the staffing deficit falls, and I wasn't sure if it's because we've had to separate our leads and assistants, and you know, I'm sure there's some of that too, but the floater piece was not something I was thinking of, so thank you. That helps me understand that better, because I know our preschoolers miss their 13 buddies and their lead teacher, you know, and the assistants have done an amazing, again, I commend the consistency that we've been able to provide for those 3s and 4s. But it's still very different, you know.
Yeah, and I really, again, thank you out to the assistants. They really have done a phenomenal job, and they have really stepped up in ways that we can't even imagine. So thank you to them.
Absolutely.
Hey, Brian, do we have any information on how many parents want to come back in person like we had in the fall?
No, we haven't done any surveys. Most of the stuff I hear is overwhelmingly can we just get school started again? So,
Yeah.
So I decided not to survey. I look at it this way. We're halfway through the school year. I think parents know what they want and don't want, and they're pretty good at communicating that. One way to look at that first week back is by splitting preschool from primary, from the Ks. Say we opened up preschool, just like it's running right now in the day camp. If we wind up with any positives and we got to push a classroom home, the kinders still could come back on the 11th with the lead. The minute the kinders are back with the lead and we run into a lot of bumps and bruises that first week back, now you're quarantining a whole group of kids again versus a half a group of kids. So there's pros and cons to both, you know. But as far as putting your toe into the water, how well is everybody after 2 weeks off? At the heart, again, we're in the middle. The longest, darkest day of the year, you know, is in December. So obviously we're at that time of year where we're inside the most. What is our phase back to in person? Like I said, some schools are just jumping for it. It's on the calendar, we're going. They're going to deal with the consequences. And consequence doesn't mean bad, just how it rolls out. Jeffco seems to be a little bit more, when I say Jeffco, the district and also Jeffco Health are in agreement of their plan to jump on the 19th, but they're starting preschools right away. So on the 6th. So you can.
So Brian, it kind of cutting through the different scenarios. It seems like we're getting to a point of you know, based on what Robin has said and stuff, I think it definitely makes sense to have the 6, 7, and 8 that week be the staff day and then remote, except for oops. Sorry, I was looking at the message. But are we really, is the biggest question now from a restart perspective, do we restart on the 11th or the 19th?
Yeah,
really...
I think once we decide that, then we can back into how we want to handle the week of 6th, 7th, and 8th, you know, that first week of January. So to me, I think that's step one, is when do we want everybody back? And then step 2 is the phase in. And then 3 is any other peripheral details, you know, day camp, things like that.
Well, and I'd really be interested in hearing what everybody else has to say, obviously. But from my perspective, I would be much more in favor of in-person return on the 11th than the 19th, just because otherwise I think that week of the 11th ends up being a wasted week. But again,
it might, I mean, this isn't if you're talking about students and you're talking about a wasted week or whatever, Jack, a lot of families were able to piece together something for December because it's the holidays and they maybe had some paid time or some leave that they could use. And that just squeaks them by through December. But the longer we go into January, then you're talking about you need to make alternative arrangements, and you know, maybe a week. Are you really going to be remote learning? Are your kids really going to be having full education for that week? You know, for that week if you come back on the 19th instead of the 11th.
Yeah, that's my point exactly. Is I'm not sure that you get a lot of remote education that week necessarily, but
I kind of agree. speaking to wearing this board hat and this parent hat, it's not easy in this situation for any of us. I would be in favor of the 11th personally, but I think we also need to really think about our kinders. I think they're our youngest population. You can also go to or any other private preschool and get kindergarten right now, and I don't want to lose, we have an amazing community. I don't want to lose any family members because we keep pushing it farther down January. But I also know safety and health are of utmost priority. So this is not easy. But I say all that to say, I think the sooner we can get our kinders back, our primary environment back in a cohesive unit, whatever that looks like, I think that benefits our youngest population really well. And I think I would be in favor of January 11th for the rest of the school. But my other question is though, like January 6th, 7th, 8th as a remote days, I get that teachers may need some time to plan, but I don't know. But I also understand the 14-day quarantine. But what is 3 days of remote learning and then starting the 11th? I don't know how and I'm putting my parent hat on, so
Lisa, may I speak to that?
Yes,
we wouldn't just be planning for those remote days. We would be planning for the rest of the year. In addition to the remote days. It would just be a regular plan day. As if throughout the year, and then we add remote to it.
Right. Okay. So would the children be engaged in remote learning for the 6th, 7th, and 8th?
Oh yeah.
My question. So we come back for remote learning for 3 days and then start in person.
Well, that would be one scenario.
Yeah, okay. Because if we didn't, wouldn't we have to extend the school year 3 days?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Lisa, my thought on those 3 days was that gives us, because January 1st is that Friday,
mm-hmm.
and you have people gathering.
Yeah.
It gives us 5 more days, to make sure if anybody's going to get sick, hopefully they would get sick before they come back on that Monday, the 11th, instead of, right smack a couple days after the 1st.
Okay.
My 2 cents is that Jeffco probably picked the 19th for that exact reason, because that then spaces it enough that people are coming back in person only after they've had 14 days to either get sick or not. And I kind of am on board with that. Personally, I would rather the 11th, like as a parent, because my 8-year-old and I are not getting along very well right now. But I think safety-wise, I can see the point of Jeffco of waiting till the 19th. But I'm a privileged person, right? I can do that. I can work from home. And I know a lot of people can't. So, I want to be considerate of that too. It's unfortunate that we didn't necessarily get parent opinion on this one, but, I guess we all are. Just as a show of hands in our board group, how many of you guys can work from home? Okay, that's interesting.
The issue is, can you work from home and get work done, or can you sit at home and not get fired? But do you get work done? That's a different question.
Right, I understand. It's tough. Well, and are the kids learning? It's different to finish the semester remotely, I think, because there's already a routine and everything's going. But I think to begin a semester remotely, no matter what, we have to. But I think it's harder probably than finishing. But that's just from over here. So I don't know if that's useful, but I don't know what I would vote for, the 11th or the 19th.
Yeah, if it was a show of hands, I'd be more inclined to say the 11th personally, just kind of weighing the risk, and I feel like there's risk throughout, no matter when we restart. I think the 11th at least gives a little bit of additional time after the break and the big events in the break happen. I think it's also something that would be more accommodating to families that have worked really hard to try to keep something going over the last couple of weeks. And I think another week on top of that would be really hard for a lot of people.
All right, so do we want, how do you want to do this, Brian?
Well, you know, it comes down to this. In order to do what we want for parents, we have to have enough staff to pull it off. And so here's what we don't know. We don't know on the work day, January 5th, how everybody's doing. I really look at that first week as a test week. I think we have to have multiple backup plans here. So let me run a scenario. What if we ran preschool just as we're doing right now that first week? If it goes great, that gives Amy and I time to check in with all the staff that week who are teaching remotely, K up to 6. Are we ready? Are we ready? Looks great. Let's go for the 11th. But what if we got 5, 6 staff members? All it takes is a couple. Now we don't have it. Now we're going to partially open, if that makes sense. Well, we're going to open 14 of our 17 classes on the 11th because we might have pushed the window and opened too soon. That is a possibility. Or if I wind up having more staff sick, we might have to say, hey, we're going to hit the eject button and we're going to reopen in person on the 19th. So you could do a graduated check-in system that allows us to make sure, because again, wishful thinking is great, but you got to have boots on the ground, as they say, to pull this off. So for me as an administrator, for us to deliver what we want, I got to have a process to ensure staff is ready, healthy, to whatever scenario, be ready. And I think that would be really hard to start full blown as the schedule says. So I think most people that I've talked to, they're okay with the 11th if they're well. But they prefer the 19th because, again, it's just that little extra time to make sure everybody's ready. And from a staff's perspective, it's just about kids being healthy too, coming into the room. So I think we have to have a backup plan no matter what we pick, that if you don't have enough staff to run the building, you got to back it up a week or 2.
And that's probably going to be a challenge for the rest of the year. I mean, that's not just for January for this restart plan. That's going to be a that you've been dealing with that since the beginning of the year.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
But I'm just saying January and February are going to be a bumpy ride. Just like if we were in December, it would have been a bumpy ride. I think everyone's got to wrap their head around that. I would just like to try and stay open. Whatever date we pick, we go to May, and we just keep dealing with, I know parents don't like that, but there's no guarantee to, we're not going to quarantine classrooms. There's just none. And we might get by for a while. We did great for a while, and then we kind of, started sending a few home. But still, compared to other schools, I think we did fabulous. I think most parents would agree. Let's open up when we think it's safe, and we'll put on our seatbelts, and we're just gonna ride it out. Because we have different ways. If we get too many cases, we shut down for a day or 2, clean the school. There's other mechanisms in there to kind of tell us, do we have an outbreak on our hands? But like I said, as a staff and as a student population, we have to be ready to go back to home or back to school. We have to get good at going back and forth. I just think that's the wave of the future here.
I would be much more in favor of kind of what you just said, Brian, which is setting it for the 11th, subject to conditions as they appear on the, you know, the 6th, 7th, and 8th.
That's a possibility.
I just, you know, and I understand the rationale for the 19th. I really do. I think that most of our community would prefer making a concerted effort for the 11th, tempered by good, sound judgment based on what's occurring at the time.
Could I pose a question, Brian? Thinking about what you just said, Jack, and saying, I actually think wherever you can build in more certainty. So waiting until Friday the 6th to determine whether you need to arrange for Monday for the next week or whatever. Is there a difference between the roll in? Would you want to roll in for the 19th too? Is that week different staffing wise in your need to kind of like roll it out, Brian? Or
No, it's just more time to make sure all the pieces and parts and everybody's ready. And it also gives parents more time to not rush their kid to school. Well, hey, school's starting. They're not feeling well, but we're going anyway. All it takes is a handful to take down a whole school, you know. So it is kind of a reminder of being in person is really a very delicate and precious thing this year, because it can be taken away so quick.
And while I agree with that and totally understand what you're saying, you know, by that logic, we could say, then let's wait till the middle of February, because that also gives us more time. And, you know, at some point,
we're not. We're just saying we got two scenarios.
Right.
I'm thinking if we think there's a greater likelihood that yes, on the 6th, we're going to say, we got to roll it back a week. For planning purposes.
The 6th is a Wednesday, the 8th is a Friday.
Or the 6th, 7th, or 8th, one of those days where you're kind of checking the temperature and seeing with staff, what do you have? If you know, it's turning on one day is hard, but if you said, well, I know we're remote until the 19th, you know, then, okay, those 2 weeks, we're not having to pivot on a 24-hour period like teachers had to do when we went remote so quickly. So that's in favor of the 19th, you know, giving some more time instead of saying, well, we intend to go back on the 11th, but we're going to wait to see on the 6th, 7th, and 8th until what it looks like. Then parents are kind of, and it's not all about parents, but, you know, and the staff are doing the same thing, but, you know, families are just kind of waiting around, and you really can't plan one way or the other. If it's the 19th, you could say, okay, well, I've got to plan these 2 weeks.
Not necessarily, though, because you could, you know, we could end up with an outbreak that week as well, and have to make a switch.
Yeah, Mr. Bryan, you said something earlier. You said, you know, if I only have 14 out of 17, I think maybe it's the optimist, but that's 14 classes that get to go back. No, it's not all 17, but that's still, you know, if our goal, we all desperately want to be back, that's how the teachers want to teach, that's where the kids want to learn. You know, there's no ideal scenario in this, but, you know,
we've been lucky as a school that we've only sent 3 classes home to quarantine.
Right.
And those parents didn't have a choice. They were notified the same day and had to pick up their kid in an hour or 2. So those parents responded within an hour, not within 2 days, 3 days of leadway. So we have to give them credit for that quick. And if we did have an outbreak, chances are we'd be closed as a school for 24 to 48 hours anyway. For if they were school transmissions, we have to deep clean the school. So put it this way, inconvenience is just part of the game here for all parents involved. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if the value of knowing that at least they'll be home through the 19th gives us enough to warrant doing it. I feel like I'd rather try for the 11th with the uncertainty than have the certainty of the 19th, but then, you know, it could be the 21st, you're out. So there's no guarantees.
Yeah, the 19th could backfire too. You don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no magical.
no magical.
I'm trying really hard to take my parent half off and try to.
Yeah.
I definitely have a preference, but I'm really trying hard to see various perspectives and see where the pros and cons can be. So.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Becky. So, Ms. Robin, from a teacher perspective, and I understand the need for the 6th, 7th, and 8th from a health standpoint, is that now you got to come up with 3 days of remote learning before going in person? Is that challenging? Is that more additional work? Like, what? I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on these. I understand the need from a health perspective for the 3 extra days, that gives us a little bit more time, but I feel like that's additional burden on the teachers to come up with 3 more days of remote learning prior to pivoting to in-person the following week. But maybe
Well, I think from the staff perspective, they'd rather do the work to ensure that their health and safety.
Okay.
But no, the kids are actually more resilient than we are. And they knew the expectation before the break, and yeah, they're going to try a little bit to test their boundaries after the break, as they always do. But the expectation is to get the work done, and they know that they're going to see us in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and they know that the expectation will still be the same. So yeah, it's not ideal, but yeah, I think that the staff is definitely willing to work a little bit harder to make sure that their health is a little bit more protected.
And that's, yeah, I think that was my question, is the additional, those 3 days of health protection outweigh the additional 3 days of remote learning. Thank you.
So I think, Jack, you're just going to have to put it out for a start date of either the 11th or the 19th. And vote on that, and then we can decide the details from there.
Any objection to doing such? Wish I could figure out how to see everybody. Hearing none, do we want to, does anybody want to make a motion on one way or the other? And
Okay, I'll go. I move that we vote to start in-person learning on January 19th.
is anybody going to second that motion?
Doesn't sound like it. That doesn't bode well.
Would anybody like to propose a different motion?
I'd like to motion that we start on January 11th.
I'll second that.
It.
Lisa, you want to do a roll call on that?
Here we go. Christina Grant.
I don't know that we need to amend it, but just obviously knowing that if there's safety issues, we would be pulling that back. I would vote yay. Yes.
Noted. Brandon Smith.
Yes.
Jack Llewellyn.
Yes.
Lisa Myers. Yes. Becky Springstead.
Yes?
Brittany Horseman.
Yes.
Carmen Center.
Yes.
Robin Morrissey.
Yes.
And Beth McDonald. Motion passes.
I think the second part is obviously we need a work day on January 5th. I kind of feel we try preschool and day camp on the 6th. That is our, put it this way, in the heart of the pandemic, we've been running preschool and day camp. To me, those are small enough populations that I feel those parents are respectful enough to you know, if it's a kid sick, they're going to keep their kiddo at home. So that's, I think, a service that we've provided to this point, and I think we should provide it on the 6th as well. I don't know if that's something we need to vote on, but that's the way I'm kind of seeing the world if we're going to start on the 11th.
I think that's an easy call. I agree with that completely.
So do I. Mhm. So do I.
Obviously, I agree as well.
Because it gives us the 5th, again, as a day of going, all right, do we have enough people to start? And if we don't, we'd simply call and we, you know, we might have to modify a few classes here and there or find people, but it'd be put it this way, I need to know for a shadow of a doubt the week of the 4th, you know, that we can open school on the 11th. And so to me, that is our test week. It's not pretty if we have to change anything, but at least we'll know how people are doing, how kids are doing. Can we get our services and our support programs and everything up and running that week? So I feel that's very doable, and we can adjust on the fly.
I'm not really sure we need to, but I think just for clarity, maybe it makes sense to do a motion that confirms that first week that we'll do pre-K that and day camp that week, and do remote for K through 6 for 6, 7, and 8, just so that, again, everything's clear.
Right.
And then, you know, as Christina said, implied within all of that is adjustments as needed based on Brian's judgment, based on circumstances at the time.
So
Well said.
I move that the preschoolers and the day camp go in person starting January 11th with lower and upper L. I'm sorry. I move that the preschool and the day camp start on the 6th in-person learning, and that lower and upper L start back on the 11th in-person learning, providing Brian the discretion and authority to assess the safetiness and operational readiness of the school and make alterations as appropriate.
And to clarify, and that on 6, 7, and 8, upper and lower L are remote learning.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Did we need to or want to discuss kinder further, or are we keeping kinder locked with lower and upper L?
We kind of have to.
Mm-hmm. I would prefer that. Like I said, it gives me time to work with the staff, see how we do. And if we have to quarantine a preschool class, I still have a lead and all the kinders ready to come back on the 11th. So to me, there's a balance there that seems to work.
Makes sense.
Okay, Lisa, did you get the motion?
I believe so, yes. I have that Brittany moved preschool and day camp start on January 6th in person with lower and upper L starting in person on the 11th, providing Brian has the assessment or the ability to assess safety and readiness of the school and make any changes as needed as appropriate, and that January 6th, 7th, and 8th will remain remote for kindergarten through 6th. It's the motion that I have on record. So with that, I will do a roll call.
Wait, I think we need a second.
No,
Second.
second. I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Who seconded? Brandon. Brandon. Sorry. So sorry.
No worries.
Okay. With that, I will do a roll call. Christina Grant.
Thought I unmuted. Sorry. Yes.
Brandon Smith.
Yes.
Jack Llewellyn.
Yes.
Lisa Myers. Yes. Becky Springsteen.
Yes.
Brittany Horseman.
Yes.
Carmen Center,
Yes.
Robin Morrissey,
I'm going to abstain.
Beth McDonald.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Does that give you what you need, Brian, for the restart?
I think so. We can work, all the rest is stuff that we can work out. I do like having the ability that, if things aren't working out well, we can push days back into January. But, really the heart of it is, remember I said that, and I told parents this too, that schools are considered critical business now. And that means we have a certain degree of decision making, whether we're open in red zones and purple zones on that dial. The only time we really get shut down by the state is, if the governor said, let's just shut it all down. I just really trust the staff that we have health and safety protocols in place. We've done a really good job. We're still operating as we speak, while a good portion of the staff is at home doing remote teaching, and we'll do our best with what you voted on tonight. So thanks.
Brian. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate you guys.
And I did want to voice, the staff did want to reach out to you guys and just say that they really felt that they were well heard by this board. So I did want to share that the staff had wanted to communicate that to you guys.
Brandon, is there any, I'm sorry, I can't see the YouTube chat.
Actually been quite a bit of chatter in there.
Okay.
Calling for parent surveys about the 11th versus the 19th. And the teachers being very polite and nice to each other, which is wonderful and lovely to see. And now I'm going to get in trouble because I've been skimming it, but I haven't been reading it carefully. So if something comes in the next few minutes, I'll copy and paste it into the Zoom group chat.
Brian, or Jack, can I ask Brian a question about returning? Not on the date. I want to ask about, do we have the equipment? Do we have the material that we need for the teachers and the staff who are going to come back on the 11th? I don't know. I know there's been some chatter about teachers getting the vaccine, becoming critical workers. I just wondered if there was any update on that. But if it's more appropriate to do at a different time, Jack.
Our teachers aren't into the second wave. We're not in the first wave. In fact, we're stacked way down inside the second wave. So despite schools being critical business, we're not in the front of the line by any means of the vaccinations. So best case scenario I'm hearing is maybe April for wave 2. Right. So the year's almost over. Right. Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't know.
Thanks for that, Brian, for all of that. Thank you. Do we want to talk? You touched on middle school, and question for you. We had talked about having another, I hate to call it a retreat, but a board work day, in large part to talk about the middle school and kind of planning and stuff, but we had wanted to hold off on doing that until we had at least some structure to it. From what I'm seeing in your report, it looks like we may be at that point. And is that something that we should go ahead and plan? Maybe try to get on the calendar for sometime in January. Yeah. And if so, how much do we want to talk about middle school now? And I'll leave that to you and Christina.
Well, I kind of left it with the group last Wednesday that we just need some time to mesh all the work from the different groups and kind of see where it all falls together. And I think it's probably going to be a couple-hour powwow. I'd like to do it later in January, you know, give us time to get school up and running and deal with all the logistics of second semester and get report cards off, all that stuff. But by that fourth week, probably that fourth week of January, we should probably have a meeting. That's my suggestion, Christina.
Yeah, I agree, and I was going to suggest, Brittany, if we sync up and cover the output of the meeting with the staff, and we can maybe find a date and propose that, looking at, again, after the holidays, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we need to have a lot of rehash. It's the agenda kind of naturally lends to itself based on the work of both groups. So I think Christine and I could get together and hammer out an agenda and some kind of protocol for the meeting. But I was thinking somewhere the week of the 25th, Christina, of January.
To get the full group together?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that seems reasonable. When would be a good time just to sync up and talk about the agenda?
Okay. Well, let's see here. I could probably, you want to just do that right after winter break?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I can reach out to you through email.
Yeah, let's just do that.
We can connect. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
Well,
Christina,
then what
will
I'll
just
do
take
is
care of it.
I can reach out to the board with some different date possibilities. I'll confer with you and Christina, and we'll get a schedule set for that week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So can I make something really clear? I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I've been looking at the comments, and perhaps it was my comment that has been misconstrued. You know, my concern was not that teachers wouldn't teach during an extra week of remote learning in no way, shape, or form. I mean, I sit across the table from my third grader and I listen to Miss Jennifer all day long and the work that everybody is doing to make remote learning as good as possible. You know, I can't say enough. And so in no way am I suggesting that if there was another week, it would be a waste. On the other hand, I just know kids too. And, you know, there's no doubt that they're better in person if they know it's one more week, you know. So that's all. And you know, anybody who took my words too literally, please put it into context, because I in no way am suggesting that teachers and staff wouldn't be working hard and to make it as productive a week as possible. Okay, with that, anything that we need to talk about on construction, Brittany? I'll take that as a no. Budget and finance, you got a meeting coming up this week, right?
Yeah, we're meeting on Thursday, and since we just got our final FTE numbers, I'm trying to get adjusted budget for this year done for our meeting on Thursday. So that's why I apologize for not having that tonight.
Okay, so pretty much want to hold on to discussion on that until next month after you've met.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think after the finance committee, if there's any surprises or any real big thing, obviously we'll report back to you, Jack, at least by Friday. And then you can determine information you want to pass on to the board, and any of the information in that content from that committee, if it needs to be talked about any sooner than the next board meeting, I'll let you make that call. So,
All right, we can always schedule a special if we need to.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Committee reports. Is there anything? Nothing. SAC, finance. We've already said nope.
We postponed the SAC till January, so we did not meet this month.
Makes sense.
Yep. Thank you.
Sorry, monthly meetings. JCSC. Nothing. PTA. Nothing.
Maybe.
The dark days of December and quarantine. Jeffco, Brandon, I'll send your notes around. Anything else you want to note about Jeffco?
Just my absolute shock that they did a mental health crisis analysis, and 21.3% of middle schoolers had considered suicide, and 8.1% of middle schoolers had attempted suicide. And for high schoolers, in the last year, 17.8% of them considered it, and 6.6% attempted it. It absolutely astonished me. Now, I know that's not pertinent for us, but that was so incredible to see that's the state of our kids. I don't think they collect data on that for elementary, and hopefully there's no reason to, but it absolutely astonished me, and so I had to share that.
Okay, Christina, anything on the board calendar? I'm not sure how you became the manager of the board calendar, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I was looking at that going like, I better get that open before I get called upon. This month, Miss Amy, I know we need to sync up and make sure that I get this actually updated. The financial audit to the board and the filing the annual report for Building Foundation, are those?
Yeah, we actually have new, and so I do actually need to adjust that. And I can actually do it. It will be really quick if you have it online, or I can even just, if you send it to me, I can write it on there for you. Because some of those will go away, and now it's just every quarter will be the same 3 things. Reporting on FTE, quarterly financials, and then another spreadsheet, I forget what it's called, that will need to be done. And I just did those with the bank, so they'll be due at the end of the last quarter, so they'll be due again in January.
Okay.
So it was fairly simple, so.
Okay. And then I think I have a few updates I wanted to take a look at with it. So let me do that, and then I can send a copy of it to you, and then I can make sure to get it up online as well.
Perfect.
And yeah. The other thing that was on for December is the reviewing of the draft of the administrators evaluation. So theoretically, I think we'd be starting to look at that. I know we've had to set this aside a couple times. Jack, do we have anything in particular we want to do again this month on it?
Punt it to next month.
That's my thought, Mr. Bryan. If you're comfortable with that, it could be another thing that we take a look at, seeing where we're at in January, and we can maybe touch base offline about it as well with ideas.
Yeah, I think we'll have time in January. That's fine.
Okay. I don't want to deny you any feedback that you may feel is important, but at the same time,
well,
thank you for everything you're doing.
The sooner I get the feedback, the the quicker I can make changes. So I think we should wrap it up in January. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
And that was the only thing.
Thank you, Christina. Consent, and going back to that, if you need my help on that, Christina, let me know. I can hop in and take over or participate or whatever. So just, we can talk about it offline.
Yeah, let's figure out a way to handle it, but offline sounds good.
Okay. Consent agenda, the meeting minutes for last month's general meeting were sent around. Anybody have any edits, changes, comments?
I know you all read them. Just kidding. I did. I move we approve last month's general meeting minutes.
A second.
Okay. Roll call, Christina Grant,
Yes.
Brandon Smith,
Yes.
Jack Llewellyn,
Yes.
Lisa Myers, yes. Becky Springstead,
Yes.
Brittany Horseman,
Yes.
Carmen Center,
Yes.
Robin Morrissey,
Yes.
Beth McDonald.
Yes.
All right, those are approved.
All right. Before Christina makes her obligatory motion, anything else that anybody wants to talk about? Anything at all with respect to the restart or COVID or the Broncos season or anything else?
I think I'd like to circle back with what we started at the top, is an immense amount of gratitude. Our teachers have gone above and beyond. Our staff is filling in to keep preschool going in ways that they didn't know that they could or would. Parents are finding ways to make this work alongside. This is a partnership. This is a community. I feel very lucky to be a part of it. I hope I'm speaking on behalf of the board, that we all feel very lucky to be a part of it, and we're grateful. We're grateful for every day that we're here, whether it's in person or remote, and we got to keep focusing on that. And I'm looking forward to a new calendar year, but not saying 2020 ever again. 2021 year, and immense amount of gratitude for all that goes into remote learning, in-person learning, keeping a building going, inventing a day camp on the fly. Thank you all.
Maybe just to piggyback a little bit on that, as I think about the restart plan in particular, it seems like it's very difficult, right, to see even a few weeks into the future, given the holidays and that sort of thing. So I think we value, of course, having the kids in the classroom with their teachers, with their classmates, but truly support Mr. Bryan as you get closer, right? What you're hearing from the staff, what is possible and reasonable, there's no really knowing. I think we want to be back. I do hope for the 11th. I don't really have a parent hat on that because my kiddos have been at home, so I value the remote learning and the teaching that we're getting that way. I think it'll be solid regardless, and I have a lot of faith in the staff and Mr. Bryan and the decisions that you guys are making, and kind of support whatever we need to do once we get to that point.
I think just some closing comments here. This year's been well, really since spring, it's been a lot of firsts, and this staff just seems to transition so well. The assistants are running preschool right now, and they're just amazing job. We find ways to fill in, make it work. No decision comes without two sides. The half day on Friday, I had parents call and complain, emails, and it's split. Some saying, why are we cutting off learning a half day short? I get those complaints. And then I get complaints, why are we not, a half day you know, that's no good, or we love the half day. I mean, it just, we as a group, and we do this in the front office, we just have to make our best decision with the information we have. And that's how we go to bed at night. That's how I do it. I think if I made the best decision I could with the best information, it may not have been the right decision, but at the time, that's just where we have to let that be. And guess what? Time passes, we learn from it. Who knows what February is going to bring? Are we going to have another restart in March? I don't know. But I really kind of see the year from here on out as it's going to be a little bumpy. We're going to have some problems here and there, but this staff will adjust. They know how to do it. They know how to teach remotely. They know how to teach in person, and they do both of it brilliantly. So I think the kids are fortunate to have such vested staff to hold them, that no matter what environment we're in, that the learning continues. And it just has continued from day one. Public opinion is public opinion, and some of it has truth in it, and we adjust to that. We do. We're always climbing to get better. But at the end of the day, we're here to serve kids no matter what and what environment, at the same time be safe. It's a delicate balance. And thank you for giving us the ability to sense if something's wrong and something's not right, that we can change plans. I'm happy to do town hall with parents when we come back in January and explain our situation. In fact, I'm kind of thinking of that, just so that parents understand that at any given time, could be a curveball in their life. And I think they kind of know that by now. But we just want to re-emphasize that we're doing everything we can to mitigate their disruption as well as the staff's disruption and keep the student learning going. That's the biggest piece, is continuity. So, you know, we'll all sleep on it here the next couple of days, and we'll come up with a plan for January, and we're going to see if it works. If it doesn't, we have a backup plan. So thank you.
All right. Seeing no other comments, Christina.
On that note, I would move that we adjourn.
And we are adjourned at 8:13 p.m.
Merry
Thank you,
Christmas,
everybody.
everybody.